Clare Beckton. Is she on screen here? Yeah, and she is WXN Top 10 Most Powerful Women Hall of Fame. And she's so amazing, I'm not going to introduce her because I'm quite sure she can introduce herself much better than I can do. So, super happy to have you here.
Good morning, everyone. I wish I could be there with you in Toronto today, but unfortunately I was hit by a motorcycle in Vietnam. I'm not quite recovered enough to be able to make that trip to Toronto. But I wish you a wonderful 2 days of networking, learning from each other, and sharing the valuable insights that all of you have. What I'd like to do today is I want to talk about leadership in the 21st century. Leadership has never been more important as we face a rapidly changing and very complex world where once upon a time we could ensure that there'd be stability. We see that the only stability we have now is our internal strengths and what we bring to the table as leaders to be able to contribute to finding solutions for these complex issues facing society today. Prior to the 21st century, leadership was often a command and control model where your employees or team members were given direction and they followed them. Now that kind of leadership does not work today. We know that. We know that no one person can have all the answers. Not even one small team at the top of an organization can have all the perspectives and all the answers. And as we see the change happening, we know that we need to have a much broader range of voices. And that entails a different kind of leadership, where we are focusing on the people we're leading, the people in our communities, in whatever capacity we are leading, because we know you don't have to be in a position to actually be a leader. You can be a leader, and we'll talk about a few of those people as we go through this morning. So what does it entail to be a leader in the 21st century? What do you need? And one of the first things you need is to be adaptable and also resilient. Because we know with rapid change, you have to either adapt to it or you're not going to be moving ahead, you're going to be left behind. Or you can provide leadership and provide the kind of change and vision that you want to see. And so being able to pivot when you see that things are more challenging and difficult than what you thought they would be, it's important to be able to pivot. And we have one example of a woman leader who did all of that. That was the former German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. And she had to face a number of crises during her chancellorship. They were political, they were economic, they were immigration, internal and external challenges. And she was able to do that through being adaptable, being able to pivot as necessary, and being resilient, because it was not an easy journey for her. She obviously faced criticism, which anyone in a leadership role will undoubtedly face in today's world. But she was able to carry on and successfully complete her chancellorship. Now, what does it take today to be able to do that? Well, one is to have an open mindset. You have to be open. You have to know that you can change, that you can lead through that change, that failure is just one part of that journey, and it is not the end. You will learn from that failure, and you will be able to move on if you keep your mind open to the possibilities that are coming your way. And another thing is, remember at one time, people would finish high school, or maybe they'd go to university, or maybe they'd go to college, and that was their learning. Yeah, sure, they would learn on the job, but today it really requires much more than that. We have to be continuously learning, and we have to be continuously observing what is happening in the world around us, so that we can see the challenges that are coming our way and how we are able to deal with them on a daily basis. So as leaders, it is very important to keep that open mind and keep learning constantly. Now, the second element of leadership today that's really important is empathy and inclusivity. We need to be able to empathize with other people, and we need to be able to include other people, because we know the price of people feeling not included. There is, in any organization, you see an exodus of people because they don't feel included, and that often is women or people from different backgrounds and groups. And that's not acceptable if we really want to make progress, if we really want to be good leaders, and we want to be able to lead our organizations or our community successfully. One example that we can look to is Jacinda Ardern, who was the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. She faced a tremendous challenge when the attack on the Christchurch mosque occurred. Now, she demonstrated tremendous leadership. She demonstrated empathy to the people who had been the victims, their families, and also to the community who was obviously so impacted by this terrorist attack. Not only that, she went out to Christchurch and she donned a hijab in solidarity with the other Muslim women so that they could see that they were included in New Zealand society, that they were a part and not a part from New Zealand society. And that was such an important symbolic recognition that she was empathetic, that she recognized that they were included. And so if we look at ourselves as leaders, we need to understand the importance of empathy and how we have to be able to understand the path that others are walking in. Where do they come from? What matters to them? And that's part of including everyone, is understanding where they're coming from, what are their aspirations, and how can we ensure that their voices are heard in our organizations and in our communities. And so as leaders, we have the responsibility to do that. And we know that when organizations have diversity and inclusion and they have empathetic leaders, they do better. There are a number of studies by very traditional organizations that demonstrate not only are these organizations more inclusive, but they are also getting a better bottom line, or they're getting better results from what they're achieving or trying to achieve. And so it's a good thing, not a bad thing, to be inclusive in today's world. But it's not easy, and it requires leaders to be curious about others and to be able to empathize with what they are facing on a daily basis. Now, and that also takes us to the third part of the leadership that we need in today's world, and that's courage and boldness. We need to have courage. We cannot let our fears stop us from moving forward and achieving. So we do it despite fear if we're going to achieve results. And one example, we have Malala to show the kind of adversity that she faced. It wasn't just adversity and criticism of words. It was her passion, what she values so much, which is the education of girls. And so we don't have to face that kind of adversity in most situations. Most of us face criticism. Yes, that's going to happen. And we need to be able to look at it, see if there's something of value in that, but not let us stop it at that point, because we have an important role to play. It does wear, there's no question, when people are constantly criticized and they face social media attacks, which is something people in the past never had to face. But today's world, when you are a strong, empowered woman or a leader, and men too, you will face that kind of social media attacks. But we always have to remember that if we give in to those, we will not achieve the results that we seek, and we will not enable ourselves to be empowered to move forward. I've often been criticized when I've spoken out, and I look at that and say, well, you know, I'm being criticized because I'm actually doing something. And that's important, and I think that's the way we can look at this, is if I'm getting criticism, it means I'm doing something. And there's always going to be people who don't like what you're doing. So just keep moving forward. Now, the next one is collaboration and teamwork. Once upon a time, leaders could be by themselves, as you've said. They could be leading, they could tell people what to do, and they would do it. But nobody has all the answers today. No leaders have all the answers. And you need to be able to collaborate with others, and you need to be able to have teamwork in your organizations and in your communities. Now we have an example in the Hidden Figures movies, which some of you may have seen, but there was 3 women who were in the background at NASA. Many of them were math specialists, and they worked together, collaborating with the others, despite discrimination and adversity that they faced, because they saw their greater purpose as getting an astronaut into space safely and returning them safely. And this was more important than the discrimination they faced, and because they knew they had to work together to achieve these results. No one person could have achieved those results alone. So that's a really sterling example for us in our organizations, in our communities, to be able to say, who do we need to collaborate with to achieve a result? How can we ensure that we have enough voices at the table contributing to the challenging issues that we're facing? And the more that we collaborate and the more that we have that teamwork, we will get better results than if we try to do it alone, because none of us, as I've said, have all the answers. We simply don't. So let's focus on teamwork and collaboration as important elements of that leadership. Now, another piece of that is, as leaders, we need to be visionary. We need to have the ability to innovate. And having a vision is part of our purpose as well. What is our purpose as leaders? And how does that help create the vision that we want to see? And it doesn't have to be from a leadership position. We see that in Greta Thunberg. You may or may not approve of all of her tactics, but she clearly has a vision of what's important around climate change and how vital it is to change the way that we're dealing with our world in order to protect ourselves and the climate and our world from the destructive forces that we have partially unleashed ourselves. And so she has that vision. She has that bigger vision of what it would look like. And as leaders, whether we're in an organization, whether we're in our community, even when we're in our home, having a vision is important for how we would see generating that better community, that better organization, that better world. And so as a leader, it is important to think about, where is it that you want this organization to be going, and what do you see as an end result? That, of course, as we know today, may not be an end result for very long, but it is an important and key component of moving forward. So, as a leader, create that vision. Lead with vision, meaning that you, again, as I talked about earlier, you understand what's going around in your world and in the bigger world, and you know how your vision fits into that bigger world. And so, working with your team or with your community, together you can formulate a vision that will help inspire the other members of the team or members of your community. Because remember, if you want people to follow a leader, you need to inspire them. You need to be able to get the best, and they need to be able to see that they can achieve their full potential being part of that process. So all of that together are some of the key elements of what we need as leadership today. And why is it an opportune time for women leaders? If you look around the room you're in today, you're going to see a lot of women leaders leading from various components of the world and various organizations. And it is because the kind of leadership and the style of leadership that we need today has been more often attributed to women leaders. They used to call it soft skills. Now they are very important skills. They're all about people leadership and how we will lead our organizations. Because women tend to use a style that is more inclusive and is likely to ensure that the members of their team can reach their full potential, and they will be feeling included, feeling able to give their best, which is important in any organization or community. So what also women can do through their leadership is create empowerment for other women. Because we know that when women see other women in leadership roles, they can say to themselves, I can be a leader too. In the past, when women didn't see themselves in a role in an organization or in the community, it was very difficult. When I decided to study law, at the age of 12. I didn't start studying law at the age of 12, but I could see very few, if any, role models. And so that made it much more difficult to know how I should lead or how I should conduct myself in the world in which I faced basically male leaders. So I had to stumble my way through. Did I make a lot of mistakes? Absolutely. But I felt very strongly that I needed to be a role model for other women that would be coming behind me. And when we do our leadership programs today, we talk about the importance of the role of women leaders and how they can inspire other women, young women, women in mid-career, who can see that you can do it too. I can do it too, if I see you doing it. And so we need to continue to do that, to inspire in that way. And we also know that women are important to dealing with many of the strong issues that face us today, whether it's social injustice, gender equality, inequality, climate change, that women's voices, women's leadership is essential to be able to bring that broad, different perspectives to the table that we need to be able to lead in this modern world and in this challenging world. So women's leadership is important. And what I'm going to say to you today is, as women leaders, you have an awesome opportunity and responsibility to take the helm and to move forward as leaders, to face the challenges with courage and with resilience, because we know we will get pushback, and we need that resilience to be able to keep us going. But we have a stronger purpose. We have the purpose of trying to leave the world in a better place each and every day, whether it's our smaller community, our organization, or the world as a whole. If you look at leaders like Greta Thunberg and Malala, who are looking well beyond their own communities. Now, I'm not saying all of you have to do that. We can all make a difference in our own community, in our own organization. We can be role models. We can set the example for others. So I challenge all of you to move forward today, exercising the kind of leadership I know you all can do. Thank you very much, and I hope